clothing is probably still my bait. I've lost scarves. Right? That's number 6. Sure.
Hey, Cynthia, no, this is Stephanie. Just making sure you can hear me okay.
Stephanie, we can't hear you. Hey, Stephanie, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you. And I can see you as well now.
Situated, and then we will start.
Switch your name, please. Plan on that.
Just the town. It's the town's property. So. Commissioner Henry, Commissioner Rivera. You can see where the planning commission will go. Trust
We wait till the
first.
Yeah.
To repeat that. Yeah, then we are recording. Yeah. Or I.
Go ahead.
We will call the meeting to order at 2 October 26th. Take roll. Chair Reese.
Present.
Commissioner Guy. Commissioner Glasser. Commissioner Cornell.
Here.
Commissioner Herring. Stephanie, can you still hear us? Commissioner Romero, are you? Commissioner Rivera or Commissioner Herring, can you hear us?
Here, the audio is a little bit difficult to hear.
Try to work it. We're receiving that feedback, so I'll try to work on it during the meeting. Commissioner Herring, are you there?
Yes, I am. I can hear you, but you are a little faint for me as well.
On that. And Trustee Blakemore. Here. We're having issues with the connectivity to WebEx right now. Correct. Are you on? Say that for the record.
Since there's an even number of commissioners, my vote as trustee liaison only counts in the case of a tie. So maybe you want to call my vote.
Okay, I will do. And I will also note for the record that Chairman Williams is currently absent.
Bringing down just a little bit. To skip the minutes, yes.
Yes, so currently we don't have minutes in the packet, but we will bring back the August and October minutes for your approval at the next meeting.
This time, if there's anybody online or in person from the public that would like to speak on agenda item, please make yourself known at this time. Give your name. Okay, having heard none. Close the comment.
So before the first action item, encroachment agreement, there's 72 Barker Road. The property owner is seeking an easement in order to grade the driveway for their property. This easement originally went before the Board of Trustees for consideration. However, they referred it back to you as they would like the Planning Commission to weigh in on whether they recommend the revocable encroachment agreement and if it should be approved. As town staff, we do not have any concerns. There's a letter in the packet that outlines what the applicant is seeking. We also have the applicant online, it looks like, to share what she's looking for.
Hello.
Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Sorry, my name and what?
Address?
Yeah, my name is Oriana Shioshida. The address that I'm looking for the easement on is 72 Barker Road in Nederland.
Sorry, you cut out just a little bit there. Could you please say your name again?
Yeah, it's Oriana Shioshida.
Would you like to tell us more about your action item, what you're trying to accomplish here?
Yes, so I'm hoping to build on my property in Big Springs. And in order to do that, I need to bring the driveway down to grade. And because the property's a really unusual shape, sort of there's a corner of town land that sort of cuts into it. So in order to do the driveway but keep it off of town land, I would have to change the landscape a lot more and build a big retaining wall so that the driveway could sort of curve around so that we wouldn't have to, touch the town land at all. But if I'm allowed an easement of just a little bit onto the town land, I would be able to bring the driveway to grade without disturbing the land nearly as much and having to build walls and everything. So it would be really, really appreciated.
Unfortunately, I made an error as the fill-in vice chair and say something that I should have. So I'm going to just pause for a minute and then we will come to you, ask a couple questions of the Planning Commission. For tonight, is there any commissioner member that wishes to disqualify him or herself for any personal or financial interest in the matters before us tonight? Or does any commissioner wish to report any significant ex parte or pre-hearing contacts? If you have that, right, I appreciate it if you would speak up now. And I will then disclose that I live next door to the applicant's property. Is me impartial or biased? Give the applicant just the knowledge that
Sorry. Oh,
I'm your next door neighbor. I'm right next door to your property. I just wanted to disclose that.
oh, hi. Yes, I think we've met, but I can't quite tell from the video quality.
That's okay. I would like to ask, does anyone on the planning commission have any conflict of interest in this matter, or anybody? Is there anyone who believes that they cannot be fair and impartial in this hearing application? Please speak up now. None, and seeing none here, say that everybody is good. Now let's pick up where we left off there.
And Vice Chair Reese, can I just chime in really quick on just a couple of things that I think are important for you all to know in regards to consideration of this item. The first thing is that this is really legislative action for the Board of Trustees because it is a request to have an agreement with town related to the town's property. So it's not a quasi judicial matter. And just to make sure, can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, and this is our town attorney that is speaking right here, right?
Yes. Yes, it's Jennifer Madsen speaking, town attorney.
So you're saying I didn't need to go through that basically?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
And then two other things. There's reference in the AIM that this is an easement agreement. It's actually not an easement. It's a license agreement. So that's a different type of agreement. Easement is actually a property interest. But what the agreement does is allows the property owner to use the town's property. But it's not giving away an actual interest in the property. So I wanted to state that piece of it for the record. And then it was discovered, thanks to Trustee Blakemore, that there is an error in the agreement in reference to the town's property. And so a change will need to be made to the license agreement to refer to, rather than Barker Road, because the driveway is not going, is not crossing over Barker Road. It's actually crossing over Lot 6 of Big Springs Point Correction Plat. That's the name of the property that there's a little slice kind of that's going over the corner of that piece of town's property. So that would need to be corrected in the license agreement. It's referenced in the recitals 1.2, and then I believe it's also in 2.1, there's a reference to town right of way known as Barker Road. It's actually, it would be town property, and instead of saying Barker Road, we would put in that Lot 6 Big Springs Point Correction Plat. And that change could be made before it goes before the Board of Trustees.
So when you make your motion to, say you're gonna recommend approval, do so with that amendment.
Say all 6.
I think Trustee Blakemore
Okay.
do so.
Thank you for that clarification. Sounds like we just cleaned up and still vote on this tonight, correct? Anna, did you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. Sorry, I didn't hear all of that. It's a little bit quiet. So I heard what Jennifer was saying is that if there's an error, so I'll reach out, I think back to the planning, back to Miranda Fisher about fixing that. But is there any other further action that I need to take on this?
No, we'll actually get that resolved. What you couldn't hear was she said that they'll make the changes when we give the motion, and we'll get that typed up correctly before it goes before the T.
Okay, great. Thank you. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Okay, any questions then? I'll turn this over to anyone. If there's any public comment on this issue, at the time, for you to come and speak in favor or against this action item. Present your name and address if you're speaking in support of this action item. Okay, having heard none, we'll move on to questions from the commissioners. I will close the public comment. Commissioners have questions about this for the applicant.
So the understanding is that we're not. Put in a sewer line or something there.
To you on that one.
As long as they're trying not to be correct, but you can hear us.
I could not hear that question at all.
So Jennifer, can you just confirm that with this being a revocable encroachment, at any point in time, town wanted to bring utilities to the area to do so?
I'm still not hearing anything. I heard utilities, that you could bring utilities to the area.
Jennifer, can you hear us better?
That is much better.
I figured there was a troubleshooting. Okay. Roger, would you like to go again?
Sure. The question is that with the action we're taking tonight with the irrevocable encroachment agreement, we are in no way changing the town's easement for that in the future. If we wanted to run utilities across that easement, we would still have the right to do that.
Well, I don't know that that there really are any easements in this property, in this lot. So it's kind of um, an odd lot, and I don't know exactly why the town has ownership of it. So
Well,
I'm not really answering your questions, but it doesn't take away any of the town's rights. I can answer it that way. That the
Okay.
town retains all rights to the use of the property, except for the fact that where the driveway is, we're saying that the property owner who has the license agreement can maintain that driveway over the town property.
Okay. Just for a little thing of history then, I believe, I'm not 99, not 100% certain, but when we approved the Big Springs Point subdivision, at that time, there was a very strong feeling of trying to get sewer into Big Springs. And so when we put in that subdivision, thinking that possibly there would be, a line coming from Alpine or something, it was just placed there so that a utility line that could run from, farther up, east up the hill could come down that way. So I believe the intention was there to actually that possibly there would be a need for a utility easement. So that's my understanding and my memory of why it was actually placed there in the subdivision, along with the fact that at the time, all the subdivisions that, their borders, properties were putting in a 10-foot easement in all the properties. So it was just kind of a standard operation that we were doing at the time, 20 years ago.
And I will chime in on that as somebody who lives right there and I've talked with Chris Pelletieri before he left about future projects for possible sewer going in there and that they would need to pump up over through that easement to be able to get to the wastewater treatment plant. So that's why that's there. And I feel reassured hearing that we will still have the rights if we need to. Plus, being somebody who's right there, what you can't really see from the pictures is the part that she wants to build up there is basically just a steep cliff area. It's not really usable. There's kind of a creek or a kind of a draw that goes up through there. She's got a pretty tough driveway there. So I don't think that it impacts just from walking the ground myself, anything as far as future utility line running along there if that is required, which as a Big Spring resident, yes, we still hope for sewer.
There you go.
And one other thing just to point out is that there is the ability by the town to terminate the agreement and remove the ability for the driveway to go over. So should there be any inability to do what the town needs to do for the sewer line or whatever, that is something that would be an option.
But unlikely
Yes.
that it would impact that small, very small little
I
piece
agree.
of ground right there. I want to reassure the applicant.
Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners online or here in the room?
I have one more, Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Yes, okay, right there. It's funny how you assume it's loud because my question is then is this driveway a completely separate driveway, that actually goes to Barker? Or is there a part there where it crosses the little ditch there? Are you using one driveway there, or is it two uniquely separate driveways, the entire 100% of the new driveway?
So it's a little bit of a weird situation because the driveway for the lot next to mine is actually almost entirely, well, it is actually entirely on my property, and they have an easement for some of it, but it's just sort of there. So I think the intention was that it would join up really where the driveway joins into where it is currently would stay the same. So it doesn't go all the way down to Barker Road. It joins up with that driveway that's with the neighbor, and then just branches up from there.
Okay, so it joins up west of Barker on the west side of what I would call the drainage ditch.
It's sort of more the north side of the drainage ditch, but yes. Well, yeah, I guess it crosses the drainage ditch actually. That ditch curves under and goes through.
Okay. All right. So where it touches the Barker Road, it's one driveway.
Correct. Yeah, I wouldn't be changing where it touches Barker Road at all.
Right.
Okay. Do you have anything to add, Trustee Blakemore? No? Okay. All right.
So Commissioner, I
please.
had a couple of additional questions.
Thank you.
Some of it's already been answered, but so I have a couple of additional questions, some of which has already been answered, I think. But so the town property, it currently isn't used for anything. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, great. And this wouldn't interfere with any plans the town might have. I think that was kind of confirmed that the town would retain all rights. Yeah, sure. And speak up too. Are there any environmental impacts or considerations that if the easement is granted or if it's not granted?
I am not aware of any environmental impacts for this area. Again, whether you grant or do not grant, I do not anticipate there being any issues. And, in terms of future infrastructure, of course, as Attorney Madsen noted, we'd have access to this area. We can't, of course, commit to the future and what that sewer system might look like for Big Springs, but at this time, there are no plans or impacts.
Great, that's it.
So Anna, are you fully aware of the fact that this agreement, even though it's unlikely that should something arise, that little corner of driveway, that could be reclaimed, and you're in agreement with that?
Yes, I am aware of that and in agreement with that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had clarification on that. Roger, you had something else?
Yeah, I would like to say that, yeah, I totally understand and feel like this is an appropriate avenue that we're taking. I've actually had in the past some, different issues around town with driveways and large cuts that are totally visible, across town. So I would ask, or I would make the part of the motion that when they get their construction, not construction, is the correct word for removing the dirt. Well, it's a excavation permit, and if there actually is a cut, that they would adhere to section 1170, the driveway standards, and safe built with standard that would follow that standard. And the only one really is the stable cut and fill slopes, no steeper than 1-to-1. But basically, the motion I feel that Plan Commission should recommend the Board of Trustees is that they would follow the driveway standards and not be given a variance on any unsightly cuts.
Wouldn't that variance be granted by BCA and not BOT? So do we really need to include that in the license agreement?
No, I don't think the following the standard is a BZA. That's for property. This is just following building regulations. So it's the driveway standards that they would follow, Chapter 11, driveway standards.
It seems like that we wouldn't need to reference that in the license agreement, that would be something that the building inspector would verify.
You would hope, but we have an awful lot of nasty cuts.
So yeah, I mean, with anything of this sort, though, it would require an engineering review, which would be next steps, and where JVA would be involved to ensure compliance with code.
And I agree with Trustee Blakemore. I mean, we should have optimism that the code will be followed, that anything that we have in the town code, and that we don't need to actually spell it out and add it as a condition to the motion. I would think. I think that we should have a little faith in our permit process.
Okay. I only brought that up because they were asking for an engineering drawing. And does the engineer even aware of a driveway standard?
Yes, our engineer is aware of the driveway
But
standards.
no, the one that they have hired.
Oh, Anna would need to speak to that.
I can double check with them. I can circle back. I assume they're aware of the driveway standards. I think that was part of why they wanted to, the whole area that's shaded out in red, grade back a little bit farther so that that slope can be, more gentle. I'll double check to make sure, that all driveway standards are followed, and that would just be checked as part of the permitting process. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Great. So yeah, I don't think nobody has said anything to me about needing any sort of special variances on that at all. It's just that sort of little sliver of land and then grading the area around it so that it's not too steep. But yes, like I said, I think that the intention was to make it more of a gentle slope because it's currently sort of a crease going into the drainage ditch. So it's just changing the slope. It's not making a big cut or anything like that.
So this is Vice Chair Reese. I just think that Chairman Cornell wants to be sure that your engineers have the correct town code for that. And Miranda, could you just forward that on to him tomorrow? And you
Yes.
could make sure that you email that to your engineers as they're doing the plan, just so that we don't have any disconnects. Does that satisfy you?
Well, yes, that definitely works. And it's not the issue of the slope of the driveway. It's the fact that you talked about a barrier or containing wall. And so the idea is that you don't have an unsightly cut on the side of the mountain is the issue. It's not the slope of the driveway. It's the bare, unslightly cut, which you see quite a bit up in Big Springs, where driveways have, under an old standard, have put in unsightly driveways. Under the new code, which you've had for about 20 years, you would hope that there would not be quite as many as those unsightly cuts in driveways. So that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if you do send me, the right practices, I can definitely forward them on to the engineer to make sure all of that is followed.
Fantastic.
I'll go ahead and send that to you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Yes, if you drive around Big Springs a little bit, you'll see some interesting engineering was done in the past using pretty much anything that they could find to hold up dirt. So I appreciate you bringing that out, especially since I'm the next door neighbor. Okay, if there's any other comment from the our trustee representative or the planning commission, would you please speak now? Okay, I am going to close the hearing portion. Is there any additional comment from the commissioners, discussion among the commissioners? Okay, I would entertain a motion if someone wanted to make it.
I can make a motion. I move to approve the revocable encroachment agreement for 72 Barker Road with the following change. The property to be encroached on is the town property, Lot 6, Big Springs Point, correction, plat. Point is spelled Pointe.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Miranda, when you get a second, would you call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Glasser?
Yes.
Commissioner Herring?
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera?
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore?
Yes.
Vice Chair Reese?
Yes.
Commissioner Dye?
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. You have yourself a agreement for being able to expand your driveway, Anna.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
So,
Let,
yeah.
let me confirm that's going to go before the planning commission portion is done. I'm sorry.
Correct. And so Anna, this will go back before the Board of Trustees on November 15th.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I got a little full of my powers there and started usurping the BOT.
Well, thank you so
Okay,
much.
great.
Can I just ask for a point of clarification from those online? Can you hear a million times better? Hoping a million. Trustee Blakemore?
Yes, definitely.
100
No,
million.
you guys are, yeah, 100 million. It's
A
a lot better.
million?
Thank you.
Okay, good. I
Every-
fixed it.
Everyone can understand everything, no problem. All right.
All right.
All right, moving on to our next item. I believe that Miranda is also going to introduce that.
I will handle this. All right. So this next item is a request to vacate the alleyway north of 2nd Street. Property owner Ronald Mitchell is requesting for vacation of right-of-way. He is requesting that the town vacate the alleyway north of 2nd Street. This request to vacate the alleyway is governed by the town's disposal of public lands policy and the Colorado law on the vacation of right-of-way. Currently, the town's policy does dictate that this is to go before the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is actively revising that policy so that these come before the Planning Commission first. But as at this time, this application is being referred back to you for consideration. I'd love to invite Ron Mitchell to come up here to provide a little bit more. But really quick, his intention is to help widen Second Street and to be able to make it straight and less narrow. What he's asking is that the alleyway be vacated, since he would be losing some of his property to the south by doing so, and therefore seeking the vacation to the north. And I'll probably have to give you this mic, Ron, but I don't know if you want to start with questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions for the staff? Okay. Ron, would you like to come and give public comment?
This is just an attempt to solve a problem that's been in existence for decades. So I don't have anything to add other than answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Do we have anybody from the public in support of or is there any, well, we'll come back to that. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, sorry about that. I keep getting confused. So does anybody have questions for Ron about this?
We're done with the public?
I guess I wasn't supposed to do that.
You can do it whenever you'd like, although Lee Stadell is your only public. And Lee is a representative, I believe, on your behalf, Ron Mitchell.
Okay.
Right, Lee is here for you.
No, we always have,
Okay.
if it's not a public hearing, you actually have an agenda item open to the public.
You can open for the public now if you'd like.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Having heard none, we will move on. Did you have something you wanted to add, or I think we'll call you up actually in support of this? If you're going to come up, you got to come up to the microphone. And please say your name and why you're here.
Hi, my name is Lee Stadell. I live at 3 Sundown Trail. I'm here basically just to answer any questions you might have about it. You know, this is an area of town where 4 different blocks come together, and so it's been surveyed piecemeal in the past, but we finally have figured it out. And so I have answers to any questions that you might need down the line.
Okay, thank you. Ron, do you have anything that you want to, we'll close the public comment at this time and we'll let Ron present, but you didn't have anything to present. Any questions for Ron? Go ahead.
Well, I have really no technical questions. I just wonder, what are you going to do with all the fish in the creek?
Get a license and go after them.
I think this is actually a very good house cleaning item, and I know Ron would be happy that it would be probably the first time I didn't have a whole lot of questions to ask him. So this actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, great. Any other commissioners have comment or trustee representative?
I do have questions, probably for Lee. So I'm looking at the Boulder County Assessor's website, and it shows the square feet for this property as being 10,400 feet, which is 0.24 acres. And then I'm looking at the survey, and it shows that the property is 0.24 acres, not including the lower part of the alley, which is an additional 906.4 square feet. So if we add the 906.4 square feet to the 0.24 acres, that's 0.26 acres. So the numbers aren't adding up for me. Can you explain this discrepancy between the property size. Did you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, the Boulder County assessor has all kinds of errors in their square footages. They're not surveyors. I'm multiple, I mean, just about half, if not 3/4 of the lot sizes that the Boulder County assessor has are wrong. They're not surveyors.
Do you have any document, maybe a title or something that would show that the square footage of this property is 0.26 acres?
I created a survey. It's public record. I'm a surveyor. I created a survey. It's part of the public record, and I'm licensed by the state to survey property.
The survey shows that the property is without the addition of 1/2 of the alley to the north of the property, that the property size is 0.24 acres, which is the same as what the assessor's site is saying. So it just seems, so where does the 0.26 come in?
I guess I don't know what you're asking.
Okay.
The numbers on my map are the numbers that I would use.
Okay. So
The assessors, they do their best, but they're not surveyors.
So I guess my question is, where is the information showing that the property is 80 feet in length from the north to the south? I don't see that on your survey. I see the property as not including the alley. And I'm just,
Well, the property doesn't include the alley right now. The property's actually 92 feet
Mhm.
by 113.3, if memory serves.
Oh.
That's the platted size. So if you take that number, 92 times 113.3, and multiply it, that's the square footage.
so it's 0.24. Okay, so why are we asking, why is the ask that the town relinquish the alley? I don't understand.
Well, the alley can't be built. There's this creek there.
Mhm.
So it doesn't make any sense for the town to own a right-of-way for an alley where the alley can't be built because there's a creek there. So I guess, from a standpoint of whether or not the town can ever use that as an alley, unless you put that creek in a culvert, you could conceivably use it. But this way, if we vacate the alley, then each side, so the property that was built by Mark Cohen on the north and the property that is the vet clinic now, half of it will go to the Cohen building to the north and half of it will go to the vet clinic. So the town will actually gain tax revenue because there's going to be more square footage, and the town can't really use that land as an alley. So I guess that's the positive. The negative to the landowner would be that conceivably it puts part of the property in the flood zone because there's a flood zone there, but you can't build in the creek anyway because of the setback requirements anyway. And you can't build in a creek or in a flood zone anyway. So unless you're up at a certain height. So I don't really see any negatives to it. It's just, if the town wanted to use it as an alley, we'd have to underground that creek there.
Well, I'm looking at the Town of Nederland policy for disposal of public lands, and there's nothing in here that says we would do it in order to gain it's not clear to me that that would be a reason for us to relinquish this property to acquire the tax revenue.
I mean, if you want to keep it, keep it. But it serves the town no purpose.
I have a question on
Sure.
the water rights. on the water rights of that with the creek going through the property there at the present time? Does the town have the water rights or?
I have no idea who holds the water rights.
So would that be an issue if the town were to relinquish that?
That's a great question. I have Attorney Madsen. I do not know at this time who the water rights holders are.
I don't know either.
That is
That's
something.
something that we could look into.
Right. If the planning commission would like to have us look into this and revisit, bring it back, we could do so.
I mean, similar issues have come up with this creek to the west where the library is, for example. So the library has the same creek going right to the south of it. So, I mean, so this creek goes through a bunch of different properties and it's been vacated in the alleys have been vacated in other spots. So you really wonder, why does the town want to keep it here and not in other spots? So.
I do also want to just add that water rights and property ownership are two separate things. So the fact that somebody owns property doesn't mean that they own the water rights to the water that flows over that property.
And can I just clarify, because I didn't hear anybody really, I might have missed it, state it clearly. Is the main idea is that right now the property extends out into the street and you're looking to recoup this as close as possible, the square footage by getting that other property so that you have a continuous value of the land?
Well, before we did the survey, this is a messy part of town. Mainly because there's 4 different blocks that come together. And then you've got the Schneider property where Salto is built now that was shifted 2.5 feet north from all the other properties there. So this is a messy area. So when we originally looked at this, when we were doing the topographic survey for 2nd Street, I showed it in 2 different ways, because there was survey monumentation that I didn't know which was right. So I showed it both ways. I showed it the way Jim Hazelwood had it, who was a town resident back in the day, and I showed it the way that Drexel Burrell had it. And the other part of the issue is that 2nd Street is 50 feet in Wolke's addition to the west, and it's 40 feet in Ruse's addition to the east. So in a perfect world, the way that it was supposed to connect was there was supposed to be a 5-foot jog, right? And so, but that didn't happen. So when we finally did the survey and tried to tie into this part of the block, I believe it's block 6 of Ruse's addition, block 5 is across the street, we discovered that when we used the monumentation that Mark Cohen used to build his building on the corner of Schneider and Highway 119, and then we did the survey for Ron to the south where the vet clinic is, that both those properties, that the vet clinic actually has what it's supposed to have. It has the land that it's supposed to have, So initially we thought that it was being truncated, but it's not. So, the right-of-way to the south of the vet clinic, it's supposed to be 40 feet wide, but in fact, it's 45 feet wide. So the town actually has more land, between the Wolke's addition and Schneider Street. So the town is not being shorted. It's actually gaining 5 feet of land, which I didn't realize was there until I actually did the survey. So the alley is a 16-foot wide alley. It can't be used as an alley. It's been vacated in block 2, I believe, which is to the east, all the way through block 2, where the old fire station used to be, all the way down to East Street. So it's been vacated already there. So this is just a leftover. This is a leftover 113 feet by 16 feet that hasn't been vacated. It's kind of an outlier. So,
And I, Town Administrator Fisher sent us out a follow-up Google Earth picture, which was much easier to see exactly what you're talking about. And that ground certainly is just overgrown grass right now. I wonder, Ron, did you have any intended use for that property, that alley area? Did you have something that you intend to use that additional property that you're asking for us to do this land swap with you on?
No, it just adds to the setback. And so that the trade is it goes onto the tax rolls, gives me additional footage for the setback. That's all.
Okay.
And it takes the property line that runs right through the center of the street away and gives that land to the town, the 5 feet that Lee was talking about.
But it's not really a swap because the survey doesn't show that your property, Ron, extends into the alleyway. I mean,
If you recommend this and the BRT grants it, Lee will do another survey and add that to it. You can't survey something I don't own into a presentation, I don't think.
But Lee, could you clarify, please? Are we
well,
really swapping?
technically, now that we've done the survey, we're not swapping. We're asking for the vacation of the remnant alley. That's what we're asking for. We've determined where the south line of the vet clinic is now. We've determined it.
What about the north line?
We know where the north line is, yes.
Where is it then?
It's on the south side of the alley, 92 feet from the.
Okay, so it's not a land swap. So it'd be good if we change the narrative so that it's really clear what's being asked.
We're asking to vacate.
Yes, you're asking to vacate, but we're not swapping property. You're not giving any property in return. So Ron, if you could change, I would request that you change your narrative that goes with this.
Yeah, that's correct. What we're doing is trying to clean up a remnant. That's what we're trying.
So is the point you're trying to make is that these should be two separate items that we're handling if we're going to give the alley area that he's asking for to him, that shouldn't be tied into the vacation of the right of way that you're.
No, I think vacation of the right of way and is fine. What I'm saying is the narrative that Ron wrote, the email, talks about how he's giving the property on the south side of his property to the town in exchange for vacating the right of way, and that's not correct.
That is correct. What she's saying is exactly correct. There was a time when we didn't know where the Second Street right of way was. There was two solutions. There was more than two solutions, but there were two monumented solutions. But after we did the survey in block 6, I believe it is, we discovered that, and this is just another one of those weird things with Nederland, because it was all done piecemeal. We discovered that with the monumentation on the Cohen building to the north, and coming south from that, and that building was built right up next to the alley line, within a foot of the alley. So this actually benefits that property also, because it moves it, instead of that building being right up on the lot line, it ends up being like 9 feet from the lot line, which is better for that building also. But what we discovered was if we use those monuments that were set for that building and we come south, that we have a line that we can use to determine the north line of 2nd Street. Before we did the survey, we had 2 lines. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. One of the lines was 10 feet further south or so. And so when Ron looked at it initially, and when other people looked at it initially, when I did the topographic survey for the town for the walks, it showed it two different ways. But we've resolved that to the best of our ability, and we know where that line is now. So,
Oh, okay, thanks for that
yeah.
clarification. I guess I would ask, my understanding is when we vacate a right of way like this, we give the northern half to the property north and the southern half to the property south. And then I'd ask Miranda if you know if the history for vacating along the alley on the east side of Snyder.
I am not aware of I wouldn't be able to comment without further research on that history.
I believe that history was Ordinance 76, if memory serves. At that time, when that went through, and I think it was sometime in the 70s, there was no alley there. So the town vacated it. And so I believe it's 76. There may be two ordinances. There was an ordinance that went up to, I believe, where the old fire station was, and there was another ordinance that went from the fire station through Sally and Tom Grand's land. But since there was no alley there, and one wasn't intended to be built, especially where there's a creek right there, it was vacated. And so this just cleans it up on the west side of Schneider.
Okay, I think the lights have finally come on. And so all we're asking tonight is whether or not we would approve vacation of the alley, the portion behind there. And to talk about that, I'll as Trustee Blakemore rightly stated, we have to consider the disposal of public lands policy. And I want to just ask a couple of things. One of the things it says is we have to determine or consider the value of the land, current use of the land, and if there was any public benefit to the town retaining the land. I'm just going to ask you in your professional capacity, do you have, can you ballpark, is there any value to that land currently?
Well, currently it's just a creek.
Yeah.
So
it's just overgrown grass and it's just a small plot there.
It's a 16-foot wide by 113.3, if memory serves, long creek.
Okay.
And it goes from basically all the way from Highway 119, it comes underneath, or Highway 72, it comes underneath, goes behind Wendy Williams' lot there, and then goes all the way through town, all the way behind all those houses, in between Second and Third, all the way to the river. So I don't know that there's any real benefit. Now, I know that the town took title to part of the land north of the bank, and they did that specifically because the bank didn't want that property because it was in a flood zone. And so by giving it to the town, they pulled themselves out of a flood zone. So that's interesting. But in this case, I don't really think that, you can't really do much with a creek. Does it benefit? I don't know exactly what the zoning is down here, but I would imagine that you can build up close to the lot line. But in this case, you can't because the creek's there. So it doesn't really benefit Ron in that sense. It might benefit him a little bit. Well, it doesn't really benefit him from a setback standpoint either, because, so the only thing it benefits from is a total square footage.
Is the other property owner involved in this discussion?
Not,
I got a text from Miranda.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I got a text from Miranda asking me that, so I called the guy. He's quite happy with it. He has no problems.
So would that be put in writing that there is no reason for any dispute on that on the other property owner?
Yeah, so we weren't able to get it in writing in preparation for this meeting. We do have this verbal, but if it were to go back to the Board of Trustees, we'd be sure to get something from that property owner in writing.
I'm sure we'll get something soon.
Is that currently Mark Cohen?
No, it is Nederland Holdings. Kevin Kafka owns the property.
You know, by operation of law, if you vacate it, half of it goes to one and half of it goes to the other. Ron can't take over the whole alley. Right. So
Is there, Miranda, is there a cost involved in this process and who pays it?
So, and Attorney Madsen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is possible for the Board of Trustees to request financial compensation, but currently that is not a part of these discussions, but that could be, correct?
Yeah, that could be included as a condition of the ordinance, is that the applicant pays for the cost of processing the application.
And Miranda, is there any future use that you can think of by the town of this property or?
No, I spoke with utilities, Public Works and the fire department, and none of us see any use for this area for the exact reasons that Lisa Dell had noted. You know, it is a creek. There's not much we could do with it. So we do not have any concerns as town staff.
Excellent. Any other commissioners have questions for Lee or Ron? Okay, I will close this portion. And is there any additional discussion among the commissioners or our trustee representative about this?
I have a question on the flood zone there, or the floodplain. Would the town relinquish any liability then, and the property owners take over the liability for any flood related damages?
Great question. I'm going to see if Attorney Madsen could take that one on.
Well, I mean, the town doesn't really have liability for the floodplain right there. So that's not really something that would be I mean, if they take over the property, then they're taking over responsibility and rights of the property, but the town doesn't have that responsibility.
I think it should be noted also that the flood maps have not changed in Nederland since 1979. And yet the culverts have been increased in size all through the town, including underneath Bridge Street and including underneath Schneider Street. And there's been all kinds of work on 2nd Street going down toward Middle Boulder Creek. So I don't believe there's any liability for the town or for the landowner. But let's remember that the flood maps themselves haven't changed, and everything has changed in Nederland since 1979. So those maps are highly suspect, highly. Because when you have a 24-inch culvert underneath Schneider Street, and now you've made it a 60-inch culvert, a lot more water is going to go through there. And when you take a 3-foot culvert underneath Bridge Street and enlarge it to a 60-inch culvert, a lot more water is going to go through there. So we really don't know. We really don't know where the floodplains are in Nederland right now. Just saying.
Miranda, I'm reading under number 9 in the land vacation policy, the second bullet, allowance for the town to retain easements on the land for future use. Is there any reason we'd want to keep an easement on that?
So it's of the town departments, there was not a feeling that was needed.
Great. Do we, Stephanie or Chris, online commissioners, do you have any comment or questions?
I don't have any.
All
So
right.
Stephanie, no, I don't have any either. But thanks for walking us through that clarification, because I was also confused initially. But listening, I think I'm understanding now more what the proposal is. So thank you very much.
Yes, great points of clarification, Trustee Blakemore. And I would just recommend, Ron, also that you just change that narrative to just request the vacation of the alley. when you submit that, and make sure you submit that statement from the neighbor saying that they're aware of it and they approve. Okay. This time, final round of questions.
Also looking under number 9, the last bullet point, saying that an agreement to develop within 3 years of the date that the land is vacated or be subject to a $500 per year fine. This doesn't really seem relevant to this. Okay.
There's not going to be any additional use or development of that property. You've already stated that, right?
Yeah.
I didn't understand.
He was asking, one of the bullets of our disposal of land use states that if we make an agreement with you, that you will have to enter into the development within 3 years, but it's not applicable because you're not planning to develop any of that, correct?
I can't say whether I develop within 3 years or not.
Didn't you tell us you're not going to do anything with this land you're asking with?
No, I will be developing, but I can't tell you when.
What's the proposed use of the land then? I thought you said you weren't.
I don't think he understands. We can't, nobody's going to be able to develop the creek. So you can develop the land to the south of it, but you can't develop the creek.
Right.
So
All right.
yeah.
We're just trying to muddy the waters a little bit, I guess. So yeah, the property in question doesn't have any ability to be developed because of where it's at.
Understood.
Yeah.
When the conversation about the bank and the property and the bank
I'm
giving.
sorry, sir. I can't hear you.
I apologize. Is that better?
Yes.
Great. So a few minutes ago, we were talking about the bank and the bank giving some of the property to the town out of trying to get rid of a liability. Sounds like you're taking on liability, and I think this makes sense, by the way. But I just wanted to make sure that the Kafka property adjacent was also aware that, or maybe they wouldn't be taking on any liability if there was a floodplain, but that's something they should be made aware of going forward to the board.
Any liability would depend on where you were building.
Right, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're not building in the floodplain, which is suspect.
Yeah.
You're not taking on any liability.
Okay, great.
All right. Any other questions?
No questions, but have we answered the questions? What I'd like to do is to recommend approval, and then if there's any list of things that we want to come up for staff, that they could do that between now and the Board of Trustees, rather than come back here and do this. So is there a list of, I think one thing that we talked about, I wrote down administrative cost, and maybe that's not a bad thing to make in the motion that the Board of Trustees could bring on. Were there any other things that we would like to add to the motion if we do a motion?
I personally wouldn't prefer we don't add anything about the administrative costs to the motion, because the Board of Trustees are aware that they can impose that if they want. I don't think we need to tell them that they have the right to do that.
We don't tell them, we recommend
Yeah.
that the person,
Do it.
which came up in the discussion.
Okay. I'm just, other discussion on this? Do you think we need to do that, Miranda?
Well, what other issues do we even want to make things, or we just recommend that we approve it? That's what my question is.
Yes, I think we're ready to move on to a vote. So do we have a motion? Can I get a motion for this?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the right-of-way vacation request at North Second Street alleyway by Ron Mitchell.
Do I have a second?
Can we have a little discussion now? A friendly amendment to add a change of the narrative as one of the conditions.
So it's been asked for a friendly amendment. I'll be honest, I forgot how that works.
So
That's what I was
Commissioner Cornell would need to accept.
Oh, yes, I would be glad. That's what I was asked. Is there anything we want to add to the motion?
So go ahead.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, assuming Commissioner Cornell accepts, then that would be a part of the motion.
Yes, please, I accept.
And so, Ron, that would be you amending your narrative to remove the statements about the land swap, because it's not, okay.
Okay. We're going to have a vote then, bring it to a vote on whether or not we approve of vacation of the alley north of Second Street with the following condition: that the narrative be changed to remove any reference to land swap narrative. Call the roll.
All right, Commissioner Glasser,
Yes.
Commissioner Dye,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell,
Yes.
Commissioner Herring,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Reese.
Yes. All right, the motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Really?
Oh, Ron, that'll go before the Board of Trustees on November 15th. Thank you.
All right, at this time, do we need to take a 5-minute break before we go into the staff report and other business, or do we want to just
You
press?
still have one more action
Oh,
item.
oh, did I miss something?
The November and December meeting
Yes, I
dates.
apologize. Thank you. Back to my agenda. So what we're going to discuss is whether or not we want to consolidate the November and December Planning Commission meetings. After speaking with Miranda yesterday, they don't have any packets that have been submitted for November. Is that still correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so one of the issues was that the December date falls on a week in which there's a lot of people taking off for Christmas. And so there was one of the dates that was proposed was possibly combining November and December to Wednesday, December 21st. Do we have any discussion or recommendations on that?
Right. So I think what the question really to the Planning Commission is, you probably don't need a November meeting. We could have a December meeting and have it on December 21st instead of the 28th. At which time the agenda item would be the keeping animals ordinance, which allows Commissioner Dye and Commissioner Cornell and I to have a little bit more time to finalize that for PC review.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone, any of the commissioners that have any concerns or questions about us possibly canceling November and combining it with December's meeting to make it December 21st? Now would be your time to speak up.
Sir, I guess this is as good as time. I wanted to raise some questions about the Board of Trustees, and I'm glad that it worked out that Karen was able to come. So there actually are some issues about, not issues, but the Board of Trustees, have they approved the Chapter 15, the annexation chapter? Has that been approved?
I thought we were talking about the meeting dates.
Well,
Is
I
it-
am, but as far if we're going to cancel the meeting in November, I'd like to know where we're at with there's 3 things that have come to my attention. There was an email today about possibly eliminating the parking for businesses, which the mayor sent out an email.
So that already happened. The parking, oh, you're talking about the email recommendation from Arwen.
So there's parking.
Pardon.
And there's
thank you.
has the Chapter 15 have been updated and approved?
So the, we are working on new annexation code and procedures. That hasn't been approved. And I don't know, when's that coming up again, Miranda?
It actually comes up again next week.
Oh, it
And I
does.
think, so just to Commissioner Cornell is wondering if the Board of Trustees intends to refer that policy and an ordinance to the Planning Commission for feedback.
Yeah, I made that recommendation already, and I don't think there was anyone dissenting to it, so.
So I
Yeah.
see what you're saying, Commissioner
Well,
Cornell.
I'm
Yeah.
bringing up, yeah, that so you had this parking, And also, which I spoke to you about, the land use plan for annexation, which I spoke about to you. So there's, I believe if we're going to go forward at that parking issue, there's three big planning commission issues that I think that I would like to actually say that they were there before we would start canceling meetings and say, well, would we cancel that meeting? And, and Jim, excuse me, not Jim, Steve, was out of town. So it's something that, I'd like for him to weigh in, but those are three huge discussion items that I feel that, it's not our prerogative, but certainly the planning commission historically, weighed in and gave recommendations on changes to chapter 15, 16, or 17 was actually the issues that we worked on. And certainly the land use for annexation, which is actually supposed to be done every year, update the comp plan so that there actually is a land use plan, especially now that we're discussing taking on, not doing the IGA. So those are three things that I just wanted to throw out there that would be important before we would say, oh, let's start cancel meetings.
So is it your recommendation that we do not cancel November because we have enough work to do?
I'd like at least to discuss if we're
Yeah.
going to even be referred to have these items brought to us.
So the annexation is coming up to the Board of Trustees next week. And so that could be brought to the Planning Commission in November, could it?
Yes, I could.
As far as the parking is concerned, there's currently a moratorium on minimum parking requirements for the central business district. And town staff, it will be working on a recommended ordinance for minimum parking requirements, if any. But I don't know when you'll be finished with that.
No, and actually, I owe an email to Vice Chair Reese and Commissioner Glasser because we would like to pull that subcommittee back together to have some preliminary conversations about what those code amendments should look like. And we do feel it's best to bring that subcommittee back online if you agree.
So is it likely or unlikely that it would come before the commission in November?
No, that won't be ready. I mean,
Okay, what was your third issue that you wanted?
Well, actually, the parking, it would seem like before historically, so I won't say what's right or wrong, because I don't know that there is, but historically, the parking is in chapter 16. So it seems like the board of trustees should want, or at least get feedback before they actually would even put it on the agenda.
So the presentation with the recommendation of the moratorium did come before the Planning Commission.
The moratorium is fine, but the idea of actually doing away with it, the way that email today was.
So that's just a comment. That was just a public comment. That's not anything the town board has taken on. I think Mayor Billy just wanted to send it to the Planning Commission as an FYI. It's not anything we are currently
Okay,
reviewing.
well, that's good. I thought it was his ideas.
Yeah,
Right.
Arden.
It was, thank you, Arden Buck
So-
had submitted it as a comment to the Board of Trustees, and Mayor Billy
All right.
then
well,
sent it
which
on
I-
to all the boards.
Emails are easy to interpret, but much better to discuss it now.
And the
Seeing how we just did this unbelievable one with Ron. So thank you very much for clarification. The other one, and certainly it's the land use annexation plan.
the 3 mile plan.
And that's actually
Yeah.
after 15 is approved, anything. So that would be something to work on next year. That doesn't have to need to be done in the next 2 months, but it's something that we need to actually know and understand that the planning commission should start working on a development plan if we're going to, or the town needs to work on a development plan if
so-
we're going to do that.
Yeah, the IGA with Boulder County, which, it currently doesn't show any land that we're interested in annexing outside the town boundaries, but then it does have a high-level procedure for annexations, which refers all annexations to the Boulder County Planning Commission and the Boulder County Commissioners, as well as our Planning Commission and our Board of Trustees. But that it expires the end of this year.
So this has nothing to do with the IGA, Karen. This is the plan, which you said you had the email, and it says you don't have to do it, but very likely any annexation should not go forward without this plan.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Do you know
saying,
if we're going to be talking about a 3-mile plan anytime in the near future?
That was not currently set for at least next week. And so I think we need to visit. So Trustee Coombs, Ismail is taking this on.
that's what I just said. That's something that would be deferred to next year, is what I just said.
Right. So, and we have not talked to Trustee Coombs, Ismail, but I did forward on your email to him, so he is aware. But I have not heard any further discussions about that right now.
Definitely, yeah, definitely that's within the purview of the Planning Commission. The Board of Trustees needs to have your advice on any sort of 3-mile plan that we do, any parking requirements, and any annexation procedures. So thanks for bringing
Right.
that up.
Well, I would, and I need a little help on that, but as far as the 3-mile plan, it's part of the comprehensive plan. And it actually sounds like, from what I read and historically know, it's something that should be initiated by the Planning Commission.
Okay, so
That's pretty clear what it, when you read about it.
Yeah, I guess I don't feel like we're at a place where we could weigh in on that right now tonight, but could look into it further with Attorney Madsen. And then if you kept your November meeting, we could discuss this
Right.
further.
well, let's talk about that again.
Okay.
So did the staff have a recommendation? Were you saying that you didn't think that we had enough stuff for November, and that's why we were considering consolidating?
Well, in your aim, I proposed a November and December date. I know you and I verbally talked about the possibility of combining, but in the aim, I do propose moving both November and December to the 3rd Wednesday versus the 4th.
December.
Well, both. It would be November 16th and December 21st. So we just propose pushing it up 1 week. Because otherwise it falls on the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, we certainly could do that, and we can certainly cancel. If we,
Right, you could keep it and then we could see how far.
when you
we
don't
get.
have those issues, right?
I think at the 6th, oh, now I gotta look at a map or a calendar. Yeah, November 16th and December 21st is our recommendation.
Okay, so we know the recommended dates. Can we make it? Anybody have a conflict on November 16th and December 21st that would prevent you from us making that change?
I probably have a conflict on the 21st.
Anything from our commissioners online?
This is Stephanie. I'm not seeing anything right now. School ends the 16th this year. So there's a chance we might do something that week of the 19th, but we don't have anything planned at this point. So I can be there one way or the other, probably online.
All right, I can make both of those dates too. So do we just want to vote to, or do we need to vote? Is this a votable item?
Yes, we would like a motion and a vote, so it's in the record.
So any further discussion on us before we move to a motion on changing the November and December dates to November 16th and November 21st? I'm sorry, December 21st. Thank you.
I make a motion that we move the November and December meeting dates, November 16th and December 21st.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Glasser,
Yes.
Commissioner Dye,
Yes.
Trustee Blakemore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell,
Yes.
Commissioner Herring.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes and we will adjust those dates. I appreciate you bringing up, that was actually my mistake. We did discuss that verbally. I completely blew that and didn't scroll down to this item. So thank you, Commissioner Cornell, for drawing that attention about that. Okay, now do we want to take a 5-minute break before the staff report? I do. So I'm going to say yes, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to come back for the staff report.
engineering plan that needs to be done. Or we make it ours.
All right, let's reconvene and hear about the accolades of our town staff member, Nikki Dunn.
So this month we want to celebrate Nikki Dunn. In the packet is our CIRSA audit. So our CIRSA is our insurance. Nikki scored above 100%, which is incredible. What this is it's an audit of all the town facilities where they do a walkthrough and just make sure that we're complying with their standards, and there's opportunities to get extra points, and Nikki was able to do so. And so every year we just get better and better with these CIRSA audits, and Nikki took the lead on that, and we're very thankful for everything she's done. What's really cool about Nikki too is she's established herself as kind of a vital asset to CIRSA and is now training people to be flaggers under CIRSA's standards. So it's neat to see her kind of grow into that role and take on those additional responsibilities. COVID updates in here as always. Again, I can never narrow in, unfortunately, on Nederland specific data. So you have the county. But one thing I did include in here is the flyer that there are vaccine mobile buses coming to the community center for people to get vaccines.
Do you have a date on that already? Or?
They've passed. The flyer passed, and I don't know exactly when the next one is. But I would say, Linda, when's the next one? Do you know? It's we can send out a notification. I do not know when the next one is off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. Yep. Agreed. So what I put in here is we were awarded the Big Springs Egress full funding. So what FEMA is awarding us is about $525,000. We bring in a $175,000 match, and that is for project scoping. So if you all remember, the Board of Trustees had a long debate about the Big Springs Egress FEMA funding, and ultimately decided to use that to continue to evaluate routes for an egress. We cannot use these funds for construction. So we would have to look into future grants to actually construct the egress route that is selected. This just allows us to continue to analyze and identify what is the appropriate route, and then also start to design that route so it is shovel ready. Well, total of, we may not use it all, but it's a total of $700,000 to go towards project scoping. Unlikely we'll use it all, but the money was ours. So the feeling was, let's go for it all because we don't have to compete for it, and there's no penalty in not using it all.
And one of the options I think we're still considering is having the egress over the dam. So, there's a lot of big concern, things that we have to address.
So that's going to allow you some
Sunset.
additional planning opportunities to look at more options then, is what you're saying?
Right, and do a full evaluation of all the options. So the environmental studies are done, and so it can be shovel ready and the plans are done. Because I think that's what we've always been missing, is that shovel ready component. Town is partnering with the Colorado Tourism Office for a Reimagined Destinations program, where we can kind of look to understand local tourism as it relates to our economy. There's a survey we're asking people to take, so there's a link to that in the packet. There was also an annexation survey, but that did close at 5 o'clock tonight, so further discussion.
So I'm going to recommend that when you send those out, that you put in the email portion that it's only one question. Because I let that sit in my email box for 3 weeks thinking it was going to be multiple pages. And then when I opened it up, I was like, oh, well.
Okay.
Yes.
I appreciate that feedback. We will do so. Let's see. Every year last few years, we received Boulder County Economic Vitality funding. Nederland and the DDA pooled our funds for a total of $12,000, and we were able to kind of do an even distribution amongst 44 businesses to give them a little less than $300 each for them to use how they see fit. A lot of them plan to use it for operational expenses because they're struggling to bounce back from COVID, or to give bonuses to staff who are with them during COVID. So that's exciting. We're still doing those advisory board and commission collaborative meetings. The next one is on November 10th from 4 to 6 at BC Brews. Public Works is busy. Just kind of a few highlights. Nikki, under the supplemental budget, received funding to work on bringing our sidewalks up into compliance for ADA. And so that work is happening throughout town. We also recently learned about a hole in the pedestrian bridge. So Nikki was able to do a temporary fix, and then later the team came back and did the permanent structure. So you can see the temporary pictures as well as now the permanent. Nikki's also working with the DDA on just a full rehab of that bridge, and hoping that they can help support financially fixing the siding as well as the roofing that are in pretty rough shape. Streets has been busy as well. They did some striping and shouldering on School Road, which is where they paved. They've done a ton of culvert and drainage work. And recently we actually had, they did their first water tap, which is huge. Chris Pelletier did them all the time, but had never shown Emmett how to do it. So Emmett got to learn. He got to shadow some other excavators who were doing taps, and Emmett performed his first water tap, which I'm so excited for him. So there's some fun pictures. Not in here, but recent issue is that the culvert really rusted out on Lakeview and collapsed. Emmett had to go in and replace the culvert and then repave. But we're happy to report that that is much better over there, and his team was able to take that on as well. Utilities is also very busy. There's a fun picture of Chris Caligaris here, who's doing some work on Hilltop water storage tank. A water main recently broke on 3rd Street, and also kind of really proud of our team, utilities and streets together. Without much, external help really at all, we're able to identify the location of the leak, really crimp it off, contacted the homeowner, determined what needed to happen as next steps, and dealt with it all in a matter of 6 hours. What we thought would be a multiple day project, they were able to get done in 1 day. So very excited for them. And then there's a fun picture. It was a cold day and they're getting covered in water. Actively recruiting for the police department. We have 3 marshals, 2 sergeants, and 1 officer currently in background checks. Trustee Blakemore and I talked a little bit about this morning. Police department backgrounds take a very long time. It's a couple weeks process for them to go through their poly, psych, and background. But we do have candidates going through that at all levels. And we hope to be able to have a community meet and greet and BOT interviews before the end of the year is our goal.
Can I just ask a quick question on, so have we done anything during this interim where we don't have any officers in our department as far as an additional agreement for coverage with Boulder County?
So Boulder County is providing extra duty officers, which are officers who are willing to sign up for shifts above and beyond their regularly scheduled shifts. Pretty much every day has been signed up for, and we've been doing extra duty the last 2 months. I think, yeah, feels like it.
We pay them 2 times their wages.
Yes, so it's about $30,000 a month. But we do, as I would say, October, there was an officer on every day. And they work the full shifts pretty much.
And that's a 14-hour shift?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
Yep.
We have a contract. We're still under contract with Boulder County Sheriff's Office for overnight coverage.
That's all that's in my report, but I didn't know, Trustee Blakemore, do you want to talk about the transportation multimodal plan? Oh, okay.
One more question before we move on from the police. Do we have a projected, I know that this is fuzzy and it could change based on hiring and all that. Do we have an idea, even ballpark, on when we might stand a department up again?
Are you talking fully staffed?
Any staff, like a chief and an officer.
With running marshal sergeant officers through right now. I'm hopeful that, definitely within this first quarter of 2023 to have those. Obviously we need the marshal. You can't hire sergeants and the officers without the marshal. The point though is to have these candidates ready to be hired as soon as the marshal is hired. So there won't be a lag time in their recruitment because we're recruiting for all levels.
So it could be potentially all next year that we're rebuilding the department up to full strength.
Right, so we are budgeting for 1 marshal, 1 sergeant, and 3 officers.
Oh, that's good info. Thank you.
Mhm.
Is this based on the revenue coming in with the issue on taxing?
So the Board of Trustees is currently budgeting for the new police department at the higher wages regardless. That of course will make a huge financial impact from revenue, but the commitment as it stands right now is that they would do it even without the revenue. Subject to change, of course, BOT budget is still in discussion and review.
Yeah, having, I've gone to a couple different workshops and meetings with other municipalities and small ones. And, we do a lot for the size of town we have. Having a water and wastewater is something that a lot of towns don't have. It's a separate district. So we really are doing a lot with the sales tax revenue and the property tax that we do have. So we're stretched pretty thin. Yeah, I think the sales tax is a modest increase. It's 0.25%. And that was, we did a survey of the businesses, and that is the level at which a majority, very slight majority of the businesses were supportive of it because they were concerned about losing customers with a really high tax rate. The occupation tax, we currently charge $2 per bedroom per night, and we're doubling that to $4. But if you compare us to other cities and towns in the area, in Boulder County, that puts us more in line with what the other communities are charging. The marijuana tax is 5%, is that right? Marijuana sales. That one I was really rooting for half of that, like 2.5%, because the marijuana market is going through this pretty severe correction right now. So I don't want to put any of our local marijuana businesses out of business, but I would recommend that people vote for that. I would have wished that it was lower, about half that, but I do think that that having that additional revenue for the town will really make us a lot more secure, and will keep us from going into deficit spending on our operational costs. Yeah, so we got a grant from Denver Regional Consortium of Governments Transportation Improvement Program to develop a multimodal transportation plan, and the total budget for that project is $200,000. 15,000 is coming from the town and 10,000 from DDA. So what we'll be looking at with that plan, we'll hire a consultant. So all of that money will go towards a consultant. It'll take about a year to complete once we've put out our RFP and have done a contract with the best consultant. And the goal would be to reduce congestion, improve safety, and improve multimodal options, transportation options like walking, biking, transit. The end result of that plan is a prioritized list of scoped projects with a strategy to implement the projects. which would identify funding sources as well. So with that, we could then apply for construction grants. And one area that we'll be looking at parking as part of this. And what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a parking garage at the RTD park and ride that would be a hub for transit, bicycling, walking. It would have both parking for transit riders and also public parking. So that, parking will be one component of it. And we'll be working, with every other group that is working on parking. So the parking subcommittee will be coordinating with them and incorporating the work that they're doing.
Another study that's not in here is the housing needs assessment request for proposals went out. And so we asked that those are returned by consultants at the end of or middle of November. And that would allow us to do a housing needs assessment and evaluate current housing needs, ways in which our municipal code could change to allow for affordable or alternative housing. There's a variety of different opportunities under this needs assessment, but we're looking forward to hopefully starting that in January.
Question about you mentioned a possible parking garage at the RTD lot. I heard that they have started to tow cars there that aren't supposed to be there, as in not RTD passengers. Is RTD willing to work with the town of Nederland so that it can be a public parking spot and not just RTD users?
That's our very first step.
Great.
Is to communicate with RTD to request the ability to build a parking garage on their property. Now, I was talking to our representative on the RTD board, Lynn Gissinger, and the city of Aurora has done such a thing. So they have built a parking garage on RTD property. So there is a precedence, and it's just a matter of reaching out to RTD to just start that communication going.
I don't think I've ever been excited about the prospect of a parking garage before, but that's fantastic.
On the housing needs assessment that you have the request for proposals out for, when do you expect or hope for that to be completed?
The end of 2023.
Okay.
We have to conclude the grant January 31st of 2024.
Okay. And are we going to meet that timeline?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Optimistic. We always say yes. Yeah, the one maybe concern I have is Mayor Billy had shared with me that at the mayor's caucus or forum, I don't know what it was he went to, that other municipalities are having a hard time finding consultants. I've worked really closely with a consultant on a lot of projects through DOLA, and I'm hoping that they'll bid on it. But it sounds like that could be our one hiccup, is just not having consultants. We didn't, our needs is 50,000, our needs assessment. Other communities probably have hundreds of thousands of dollars going into theirs. So whether we can convince someone to take ours on, that could be the challenge.
And the goal is to then use the study to then be able to show need for additional grant opportunities?
Yes, and a part of this expectation is to do municipal code amendments.
Okay.
That could look at, again, allowing maybe alternative housing types or whatever the consultant might recommend. But one of the expectations would to see that you make some changes within code, and then that would allow us to go on to further housing incentive grants and being able to apply for those, which could fund housing developments, affordable housing structures. I'm sure there's a million more things, but that's what we have.
At the beginning of the meeting, we said about another member for the Planning Commission.
Yes, thank you. So going before the Board of Trustees next week are 4 applications for the 1 vacancy. So it's David McLevain, Timmy Duggan, Stephen Sepik, vacancy, but great. And then, sorry, let me get the name of the fourth person. The fourth person is Ryan Villalon. I probably butchered that, so sorry, Ryan. So yeah, 4 applications for 1 vacancy.
Will they come to the planning commission first?
So historically, applications haven't come to the planning commission. I think you all have agreed just to send them straight to the board. Other boards and commissions do often want that, but planning commission has never been that way. Oh, okay. Well, the board of trustees could refer this back to the planning commission. I know the last time we had a vacancy, and I believe I talked with Chair Williams and Vice Chair Reese, that was that they should just go to the planning or the board of trustees.
Because that was present, so yeah, I'm not certain, but I'm 99% certain that we actually had an interview process and recommended, and one of the mayors decided that, well, the mayor appoints them, so we ought to just go ahead and do that.
Well, currently it's set to go before the board of trustees, I guess. It's set to go on Tuesday, the 1st.
Yeah. So what I believe was that there was a little confusion about some applicants. I was one of them, that we were trying to compete, not compete, but applying me and Chris Perret, and it came, there was a little recommendation process, and there was some hurt feelings. It got all solved, but basically as a result of that, the BOT decided that that would be their purview. It would need the BOT to then change that and say that we want to start sending it back for a recommendation to the Planning Commission. But I do remember that was the reason why that that felt like that the Planning Commission put their thumb on the scale a little bit for one of the applicants, and the BOT decided that they were going to take that on as their purview for appointing. So if they wanted to in the future say, hey, we'll take recommendations from the Planning Commission, that they would have to decide that. But
I guess you could attend the meeting next week and do public comment and let us know who you'd like,
Can I write a letter?
all right, please continue.
That is, these are hard. I'll tell you, staff reports are hard. There's a lot of things going on.
Is there anything else you would like to highlight?
That's what I've got for you today.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. That was a thorough report. Is there any questions for our town staff member? Is there any other business to be discussed or brought up now? Anybody online have other business? Any commissioners online? All right, then I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion that this meeting be adjourned.
Do I have a second? Second. All right, all in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your time and attention tonight.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:53 p.m.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.